Is your economic situation better or worse than 1 year ago? A new survey shows many Texans are pessimistic.
Growth is slowing, labor market is weak, and inflation is still high.
We dig deeper into polling data and why those opinions could affect next year's elections. A program meant to give minority-owned businesses a seat at the table, now suspended by the state controller. Why recent court cases are fueling the move. A new state law requires schools to post the 10 Commandments in classrooms. It's being challenged in court, creating a conundrum for school districts.
The fact that they don't know exactly what that consequence is even more problematic.
The legal risks schools face if they comply or if they resist the new law.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dylan McKim. Josh Hinkle is on assignment. We start with new data about how Texans view the outlook for our economy. Those opinions could have ramifications in next year's elections. And next week, candidates can start filing for a place on the ballot. It comes at a time of growing pessimism about the nation's economy. Inflation concerns persist, with 90% of Texans saying they're worried about the prices of food and consumer goods. Also, the ongoing government shutdown has many workers going without pay, and millions of people face cuts to food assistance funding. Hiring has weakened, and companies like UPS, Amazon, and Target recently announced sweeping layoffs. Amid this climate, the Texas Politics Project at the University of Texas polled registered voters about their views on the economy and about state leaders. For insight, we're joined by Jim Henson, director of the Texas Politics Project. And Jim, your poll asked people if they were better off or worse off economically than a year ago. What did you guys find?
Well, pretty bad news in a lot of ways. Personally, people, about 43% said that they were worse off than they were a year ago. About 35% said they were about the same. Now, if you look at the trend on that, we've seen this number getting worse in terms of the share of people saying that they're worse off going up, share saying better off going down. So, not great news, really.
Well, you also asked people about the government shutdown, how that was impacting them.
Yeah.
How big of a factor did that play into the overall view of our economy?
Well, I think economically it's not directly having an impact. And remember, we were collecting data between October 10th and the 20th. End of the first week, but sort of first week or second week into the third week of the shutdown. I think people were not quite feeling it yet. But when we asked people, is this going to be good for the state? Is it helping the state or hurting the state? More than 60% said it was hurting the state. So you're right in that it's not really contributing positively to people's thinking about the economy or the general environment.
Well, this poll definitely shows that Texans are concerned about the economy, but you asked them what the most important problem to them was, and something else actually came out on top. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, the top response was, government corruption or political leadership, but that was at about 18%. I think you have to drill down on that in two ways. So if you add up the share that said rising prices in the economy, it was a couple points higher than that. You break it down by party, and what you see is that the vast majority of those people saying political corruption and leadership are Democrats, very much a function of partisanship. So you have this really dominant among Democrats, but not so much among independents or Republicans.
This poll came out just weeks before candidates could start applying to be on the March primary ballot. I want to talk to you about the U.S. Senate race, because here on the Republican side of things, John Cornyn, the incumbent, he's running for re-election, but he's got some challengers. What were the people you polled, what were they saying, their view of John Cornyn and how he related to these challengers in Ken Paxton and Wesley Hunt?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is a race that's looked pretty similar as long as we've been watching it. So we asked favorability, unfavorability ratings. We think it's too soon to put people on a trial ballot. What we see is Paxton still being viewed more favorably than Senator Cornyn. Senator Cornyn is 8 to 10 points lower in the assessments among Republicans. Wesley Hunt well below that, obviously not nearly as well known as the others. But I think that race has still got, there's going to be a lot more money spent and a lot more campaigning.
Well, let's go over to the Democratic side. We already know Colin Allred, James Tallarico, they've announced they're running. They're in their race. But a third option may be coming, a third big option here. U.S. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's been hinting, debating a run here for U.S. Senate. What are things showing in your poll on the Democratic side of things?
Well, not a lot of big surprises in the people that we know are in the race, right? Colin Allred, much more well-known among Democrats, so he's got a 59% favorability rating, 10% unfavorable among Democrats. James Tallarico, never run statewide before, a more recent entrant in the race. Given all that, I would say his numbers among Democrats are pretty good, 43% favorable, 5% unfavorable. But as you say, Jasmine Crockett, former state legislator, current congresswoman, really kind of the big question in this race. Her favorability numbers among Democrats at 62%, higher than both Allred and Tallarico, which means that, we're going to keep paying attention to all those trial balloons she keeps launching.
But is there any numbers that show what she would do in a general election against a Republican opponent?
Yeah, well, that's the big question. Her general election numbers not very good, or not general election, but among the overall electorate, she's slightly in the negative, 30% favorable, 32% unfavorable. But Allred himself, seemingly the front runner, is really even at 32-32. So I think, if you're Jasmine Crockett, it's got to be very tempting to get in this race.
Well, thank you so much, Jim Henson, Texas Politics Project. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thousands of posters showing the 10 Commandments are now in Texas classrooms. Our investigation looks into who's donating them to schools and why some campuses are choosing not to display the commandments. The state controller suspends a program to help boost underutilized businesses, why the battle over DEI is shaping the decision.